All right, good vach, everyone. Thank you for joining. We decided to study the Kunshas Bais Yisrael, this publication that the Rebbe asked to print about Bais Yisrael in order to increase the Bais Yisrael in our community and to bring the blessing down. Because the Torah says, we say in our prayers, bless us, our Father, all is one. So by increasing in Bais Yisrael, it's a key to receive all of God's blessings. And there is two teachings which I wanted to share tonight that will be enhanced by the story I want to share. The first teaching is that Baal Shem Tov said, the first door that leads into the courtyards of God is Bais Yisrael. That's the first door that leads to the courtyards of God. And the Baal Shem Tov said that the mitzvah of Bais Yisrael has a positive element and a negative element. The positive element is it's a mitzvah to love your fellow like yourself. And the negative element is not to hate your fellow Jew. And then the Baal Shem Tov concluded that the simplicity of a simple Jew, his prayers, his recital of Psalms, his doing a mitzvah because God said so, is very precious in heaven. Tonight, Motzei Shabbos, it's a custom, it's a mitzvah to have a malav malka. And it says that by eating a malav malka, we bring a blessing to ourselves to merit the resurrection of the dead, because the resurrection of the dead, Mashiach will come, those who passed away will live. God will use a bone in the body, in the back area, called the luz, and with that bone, God will resurrect all those who passed away. So that bone is nourished only from the food that we eat on Motzei Shabbos. Only the food that we eat tonight, Motzei Shabbos, do we have nourishment to for that bone? So that's the key to the future, the key to the coming of Mashiach and living forever. Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead. When you think about the coming of Mashiach, the resurrection of the dead, think about the future, you think about heaven. What's your picture of heaven? What does heaven look like? Maimonides writes that there are a lot of things that we can't imagine how pleasurable they are because of the limitations of our body. And one of them is Gan Eden. We can't imagine how good Gan Eden is, how pleasurable Gan Eden is, because everything we see is filtered by our senses, and our physical senses aren't able to comprehend Gan Eden. And certainly the greater goodness of the coming of Mashiach, the resurrection of the dead, are things that we can't possibly fathom. There was a tzaddik, I don't remember who it was, who pointed out the following. As in the Talmud, if you embarrass someone in public, you have no share in the world to come. If you cause someone to be shamed in public, the Talmud says you have no share in the world to come. So someone commented on this, one of the great Hasidic masters, I don't remember who, he said, you don't have a share in the world to come because you don't really belong there. It doesn't fit in. The world to come is a place of such love and kindness and friendship that someone who's engages in that kind of activity doesn't fit in. What would he do there, was the expression he used. What would he do there in the world to come? So when we think about Tchias HaMesim, Mashiach, everlasting good, we think about what that means. There is something in the story I'm going to share with you which gives us some insight about where we're going, what Gan Eden is about, what Mashiach is about, what the resurrection of the dead is about, what goodness is about. What is in the words of Baal Shem Tov, what is the first door that leads into the courtyards of God? So here's a story. The story is printed in The Storyteller by Rabbi Mendel Shalom. It's printed in Talks and Tales. It's printed in Sichos HaNeir. It's printed in, I think, I don't have it with me, but I think it's also printed in the Treasury of Hasidic Tales. It's not a story that was shared by our Rabbi, but it's definitely a well-known story shared in many different Sfarim. The story goes like this. It's the first day of Sukkot, and a Melech of Lezhensk and Rabbi Zusha of Anipoli, they're walking through their synagogue, and then Ramelech turns to Rabbi Zusha and he says to him, "Can you sense the fragrance of Gan Eden? Can you sense the fragrance of heaven here in the synagogue?" And Rabbi Zusha says, "Yes, I do. Where's it coming from?" And they go from bench to bench into their synagogue, trying to find the fragrance of heaven. And they stop by a bench and this is where it's coming from. And they go over to this man, and Reb Zusha says, "There is a scent coming from your esrog, a scent from Gan Eden. Can you tell us about this esrog and who you are? Why does your esrog have a scent of heaven in your esrog?" So the man told them, "My name is Uri, and I come from Strelisk. If that name doesn't ring a bell, he became a tzaddik and leader in his own right. Uri of Strelisk is one of the famous Hasidic giants. At that time, he wasn't well known. So Uri of Strelisk told them the following. He says, "My wife and I aren't doing that well in regards to earning a livelihood. I work as a school teacher, and my wife she hires herself out as a cook. And we're not doing that great, but we get by. And there's one mitzvah that really is precious to me, and that's the mitzvah of having a lulav and esrog. And I always try to have the most beautiful lulav and esrog in my town. And everyone in town always uses the lulav and esrog that I have. And I really wanted to have a beautiful lulav and esrog this year as well. I always get lulav and esrog from Lemberg. So this year, we, as every year, we divide our entire year's salary in half. Half of it goes to buying a lulav and esrog, and half of it goes towards our livelihood for the rest of the year. We spend 50% of our year's salary, whatever my wife makes as a cook, whatever I make as a school teacher, and that's dedicated towards buying lulav and esrog. So I went to Lemberg, and I had with me 50 golden ruble. On the way to Lemberg, I stopped off at a hotel, and there is a kretschma, old-time hotels. It wasn't the Marriott. And I see this man who's angry, and he's upset, and he's really, really not doing well. I go over to the man, and I say to him, "What's wrong?" "What's wrong? I have a wagon, and I'm supported only by the money that it comes in through bringing people from place to place, from shipping things through my wagon, and the horse died, and I can't afford to buy another horse. So what am I going to do? I'm really stuck, and I have nothing." So the innkeeper, the owner of the kretschma, he tells this man, "You know what? I actually have a horse for sale. The horse is really good horse. This horse is worth probably about 100 golden ruble, but I'm going to give it to you for 50. I'll give you the horse for 50 golden ruble, as long as you give me 50 golden ruble. I see how this is so distressing you. So instead of you having to pay the enormous amount of money for a new horse, I will give you my horse for just 50 golden ruble." Great deal. The man starts to laugh. He says, "I don't have more than a few pennies. I certainly don't have 50 golden ruble. And it's ridiculous for you to even offer this to me. If you knew my financial situation, you know there's no way I could afford 50 golden ruble." So Uri of Strelisk hears an exchange. He sees how this guy is really how upset he is. So Uri of Strelisk goes over to the innkeeper and he says, "What's the lowest you would sell it for?" He says, "The lowest I would sell it for is 45 golden ruble. I can't sell it for any less because I would lose. I could only sell, the lowest I can go is 45 golden ruble." So Uri of Strelisk makes a quick calculation and he gives the man 45 golden ruble. And in order not to get too many, to get to be on the receiving end of the man's appreciation, he just runs away quickly and he goes off to Lemberg. Now, instead of having 50 golden ruble, he only has 5 left. And he goes towards Lemberg. What Uri did is similar to, I don't know if you heard the Minute of Torah on Friday, I shared this story, unbelievable story. This man's talking to the Rebbe about something that concerned him, but it was something very mundane, very earthy. He didn't feel like it was right to burden the Rebbe with this very earthy conversation, but at the same time, he wanted the Rebbe's advice. So he's talking and sharing with the Rebbe, but he's not sharing. It's like he's very ambivalent. The Rebbe senses his ambivalence, and the Rebbe tells him the following story. The Rebbe says, I once visited my father-in-law, and it was the holiday of Sukkot. And although technically, according to halacha, you're allowed to write during Chol HaMoed, during the intermediate days of Sukkot, for various reasons, but it's not the custom of our Rebbeim, of our Rebbes, to write on Sukkot. In fact, the Rebbe himself will not write on Sukkot. Many letters that were sent by the Rebbe on Sukkot were signed by the secretaries, but the Rebbe himself will not write anything on Sukkot. So the Rebbe saw his father-in-law writing a letter, and then he saw the letter was a letter addressing someone's need for a job, trying to help this person find a job. And the Rebbe asked his father-in-law, why do you allow yourself to engage in such a mundane task for the sake of on such a holy day? So the previous Rebbe responded, Zayin Gashmius is mine Ruchnius. His material concerns are my spiritual concerns. And that's what Reb Uri did as well. Reb Uri, he went and gave away his esrig, this beautiful esrig that he could have bought, and instead he went to Lemberg with his 5 ruble left, and he bought some simple esrig. So he told Reb Melech and Reb Zusha, that's why I'm here in Lezhensk, because usually the whole town comes to us and wants to use their esrig, and it's embarrassing to have this little esrig, which is not so nice. It's kosher, but not so nice, when we're like the center of attraction on Sukkot. So we decided this year on Sukkot to go to another town, so we shouldn't have been embarrassed. So the Melech Lezhensk told Reb Uri, he said, that's half the story. Let me tell you the other half of the story. He said that the wagon driver, when he saw that you give him your 45 golden ruble and you're a total stranger, he came to the conclusion that it must be that God had seen his plight and God had sent him Elijah the prophet to assist him. And he was so excited and so happy to be the recipient of God's direct beneficence, that God had cared so much about him that he sent Elijah the prophet specifically for him so he shouldn't suffer. He was so elated and so happy and so thankful. So he went into his horse and wagon, and he didn't know how to express his love for Hashem. Hashem, do you know how much I love you? How could I show you how much I love you? This man didn't know how to pray. He didn't know how to any words of Torah. So, but he realized that this was like, he had to show his appreciation for God. So he took his whip and he struck the air and he says, I love you, Hashem. He says again, I love you, Hashem. He strikes the air again 3 times with his whip. I love you, Hashem. I love you, Hashem. I love you, Hashem. Meanwhile, what was going on in heaven at the time was as follows. Reb Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, who is called by our Rebbeim, he's called the Sanigorin Shal Yisrael, he's called the defending angel of the Jewish people. He had brought with him to heaven, I don't know what this means, this is the way the story is told. I don't know the definition of these items, but this is the way the story is told. He had a wagon full of all of the merits of the Jewish people. And he wanted to present this wagon in heaven to bring blessing for the new year, Rosh Hashanah. And this wagon was being stopped by the Satan, by the accusing angel, who is the opposite, whose job is to accuse the Jewish people. And he's producing all of these sins that the Jewish people have done. And therefore, they shouldn't deserve God's blessing for the new year. And Rabbi Yitzchak couldn't bring the wagon forward, whatever that means. So the Melech Lezhensk said, I tried to help. Rabbi Zusha ben Apolier also tried to help. We couldn't get the wagon forward. But when this man took the whip and he said to the Eibishter, I love you, Hashem, I love you, Hashem, I love you, Hashem, that brought the wagon forward and was able to bring the merit for the Jewish people for a good year. That's what Rabbi Melech Lezhensk told Rabbi Uri Tzerlisk. That's the meaning of his esrog having the scent of Gan Eden. There's a lot of remarkable elements in the story. Rabbi Uri's sacrifice for another Jew, and the simple love of Hashem that this guy expressed, and how valuable it is to Hashem. But I find fascinating another element of the story. What is heaven? What is Gan Eden? Maimonides says we can't imagine what Gan Eden is, but from the story you see the Gan Eden. What's Gan Eden? What's the scent of Gan Eden? Gan Eden is a place of pure love, and therefore this esrog which was bought because of his sacrifice to help someone else. What does this esrog have in it? It has in it a scent of Gan Eden. That's what the esrog is. The esrog is a scent of Gan Eden. So, as we prepare for the coming of Mashiach, which is far greater than Gan Eden, and we're, in the words of the Rebbe, we're at the last stop, ready to cross over into Eretz Yisrael, we're already able to experience a higher kind of Avos Yisrael than it was ever possible before. We're able not just to, during the time of the 3 weeks, it's known that people talk about Avos Yisrael because the cause of the destruction of the temple was senseless hatred, and the way to rectify it is to have more Avos Yisrael. The Rebbe says not just about rectifying the issue that brought about the destruction. We're right now so close to the coming of Mashiach that we're able to taste of the Avos Yisrael, the coming of Mashiach. We're able to taste of the future. Mashiach is about, Chis HaMesim is about pure Avos Yisrael. And now that we're standing by the Jericho, in the language of this week's Torah portion, this week's coming Torah portion has talked about the 42 journeys Jewish people took from Egypt to Israel. And the Baal Shem Tov says that just like there's 42 journeys from Egypt to Israel, there are 42 journeys from Egypt to Mashiach. And there are 42 journeys in a person's lifetime. There are 42 stations of your lifetime. And so too, there are 42 journeys from Moda'ani until you go to sleep at night. There's 42 journeys of every day. So where are we in history? We're now by the Jericho. And therefore, it's possible to taste of the Avos Yisrael, the coming of Mashiach, which is just not about thinking about how this will bring about blessing or reward or what consequence, but just to really feel the true Avos Yisrael is what we're empowered to do at this time. And that was a story I wanted to share, and Hashem should bless us all with a wonderful week. Hatzlacha Rabbah, more Avos Yisrael, and more blessing, and see the coming Mashiach Karamamish. Any questions, comments, criticism, tomatoes, cucumbers? A good vach, Chaim Shalom. A good vach, Rabbi Reber. A good vach, Nuriel. A good vach, Lewis family. A good vach. A good vach, good vach.
Good vach, thank you.